In this section, I'd like to discuss our resources available to you. So if you were to go to atlasinsurance.com, you'd see that we have a COVID-19 section. And this is general information and updated information we've provided that's accessible to everyone. But if you needed something a bit more specific, or you wanted to add to a current policy, you can certainly contact us and we could provide you some form of template of the guideline or policy that you're seeking. And the next few slides, we'll talk about what we think about when we talk in relation to adding a new policy, and then we talk about a few best practices as well. So here you have a teleworking policy that is not necessarily a policy per se, but we think about the pros and cons and the legal issues attached to teleworking. And when this pandemic started earlier this year, and as folks were pushed out of normal work environments into their homes, there was very little time to discuss and to set procedures in motion and have proper protocol to have folks working from home. So maybe now you've had some time to adjust and maybe some things have changed and your company has adapted a bit, but now's the time to go back and maybe revise some of those policies and those procedures that work really well or maybe don't work that well. And so this, again, just want to trigger some thought behind this type of policy. The next policy that is very popular is sick leave. And as Vince has mentioned before, there is a lot of regulations and there are some new laws out there. And so we encourage you to go look for that information because there are definitely some qualifiers for employers and some qualifiers that employees must have to receive some of these benefits. So you need to understand how it works, right? How are you going to use your paid sick leave and what kind of notice requirements do you need to provide your employees? What does a compensation look like when you do pay out? Is your company entitled to some tax credits? And how are we going to enforce this? And so as you start to add or maybe adopt these new policies, it's always great to have some type of resource that you can tap into. And so right now there's a lot of information. And so we would recommend that you utilize the policies that best fits the needs of your business. Along with sample policies, you might incorporate in your back to work plan. You might want to incorporate updated best practices. So I know we've all probably been doing them, but do you have them written down? Is it in your plan? And if not, here are some pieces that you can incorporate. So respiratory etiquette, we've understood this is really important in mitigating how it's transmitted, either through touch or sneezing, or social distancing, right? Disinfecting, or even just staying at home. And another best practice would be hand hygiene. And we might be practicing this already, but having it in your plan is important. Making sure that you detail it, because for your particular place of business might be different. You might need to include frequency. You might need to include a specific type of alcohol-based hand rub that your company uses. And then also you might need to make sure you update your SDS, having that SDS sheet reflecting what kind of alcohol-based hand rub you have and the safety behind that as well. So another section that you could incorporate and update if you haven't done so already.
You know, business travel is such a big challenge for many companies in the state of Hawaii, because many companies need to do business travel, whether it's neighbor island or to the mainland. But I think this whole COVID-19 situation has made all companies rethink the way we do business. You know, companies will need to rethink the way or the need for travel to meetings and conferences. You know, whether they're doing more virtual meetings or can attend virtually rather than going physically. I do know that, you know, for our company as well, we eliminated all travel until we feel it's safe for employees to travel. But you know, the main thing here is to check with the CDC's travelers' health notices and obtain the latest guidance and recommendations for travel because it's constantly changing, and the CDC is probably the front runner of providing these notices specifically for traveling. You also want to place this into your policy and procedure and to make sure that if employees have to travel, that they understand what are the protocols if they're traveling to the mainland or even out of country, and what are the protocols they would need to take if they get sick while on a business trip or during travel, and they're not familiar with the medical system up there. So making sure that they're prepared in case they do come down with getting sick during business travel. Regarding meetings and gatherings, this is really going to go back to social distancing. You know, you not only want to strategically place individuals within your office or making sure that they have 6 feet uh, uh, distance from one another, but also you got to start looking at how you're going to control the vendors and client meetings, internal meetings that would which would be more in the small group category. Well, what is that? What is that amount? Is it 6 employees or less? And what rooms will be utilized for these meetings so you can have 6 feet distance? Um, are the offices that you have large enough to have 6 feet distance and be utilized for meetings? Even if our offices here at Atlas are large enough, we have decided to not have internal meetings within the private offices and to utilize conference rooms or the boardroom. And then embrace online platforms as an integral part of hosting or attending meetings. In other words, take advantage of your technology and continue to utilize uh, programs such as Office Teams or Zoom, just to make sure that you continue your efforts in the social distancing. Uh, I think what's really important is making sure that you don't rush into to starting to begin or start to service clients immediately, and is to transition into it and to make sure that you can do the social distancing as best as possible for now and take it in phases.
This last best practice deals with mental health, and it's a topic that's not really discussed very often, but I'd like to shed some light on it because we're all dealing with the same issue of the pandemic, but everyone's dealing with it in a different way. And so some employers were able to provide benefits throughout the last few months, and some of those benefits have employer assistance programs where folks can reach out and talk to someone. But we really encourage employers at this time to kind of step up and own this piece. And we want you to do that by acknowledging that employee fears surrounding their jobs and the company is real. But we can kind of mitigate some of that mental stress by doing some of the following. So we want to reassure them of their value to the company, regardless of what might happen. We want transparency and some collaboration, especially if you're seeking new ideas to move forward and how to open your doors again. You want you to educate your employees as much as possible about the pandemic. We want you to provide them guidance. So again, this tool right here that you're building is a great way to make sure they understand that their safety is top of mind. And we want you to encourage them to take advantage of any telemental health service out there. We also want you to be inclusive in the fact that, The future of the business really depends on the employees and those front workers. So we want to make sure that you communicate the future with them often, and to be empathetic in your communication, because as mentioned, every employee situation may be different, and the way they handle mental stress or fatigue or anguish is certainly different how maybe someone else might handle the same situation. So we encourage you to please incorporate this and take this on as an employee responsibility in order to get employees back, whether at home or whether at work, in a safer work environment.